Welcome back. You're still watching the Press Box. We're live from the Kampala Serena Hotel at the Bambala Lounge, and that's where we are bringing the big show to you tonight. Like we said, we have a special guest on the Press Box tonight, and he's right here, Mr. Edgar Watson, the CEO of FUFA, the man who makes sure the operations in Ugandan football are going according to script. Mr. Watson, first of all, good evening and a warm welcome to the Press Box.
Thank you very much. I'm glad I'm here at the Press Box.
You never really do that many TV shows. It's one of the things we've been discussing. Is it something you run away from?
Well, there's always a start. Sometimes when you're busy, sometimes when there's work, you find yourself watching the Press Box and not participating in it.
Ah, fantastic, fantastic. How busy is the work at the Federation? And I ask that because of what we've really achieved in the recent past. As a CEO, no breathing space for you, do you?
Yeah, to people who don't know what happens, actually there's a lot of work off the pitch. Before you actually start a match, there's a process under which everything has to be done. And at the Federation, there are so many activities. You can imagine we do the normal 11 aside, we do the beach soccer, we do the futsal, we do the women football, we do every scope of football within the Secretariat. So yes, indeed. And because we are so busy, it has also, led us into getting bigger staff. As we speak now, we have about 60 staff doing the work off the pitch.
And you also have a new office, which we shall talk about later on the show tonight. I just wanted to put this out of the way, that when we decided to invite you to the show, Mark Sally was very excited, though when the rest of the panel did their research, we found out that you and him were playing together at the beginning of your career, or the beginning of his career. Then after that, he's kind of stagnated as yours took over. So that's the small difference in quality. Mark, I'm sure you...
Yeah, okay, so what happened is, Edgar and I, we played against each other from secondary school. We used to play what they called the Lamine Cup.
Yes.
He was in a school of Brothers of Christian Instruction, so was I.
Yes.
So Caltech against Kasasa, Caltech against SMAC. We played against each other quite a bit. Then we went to Makerere University because we were in the same year. He went to UH, I went to Lumumba. We played against each other for a long time. Now, we were rivals because our halls were playing against each other, but we were training together. This Edgar would come to Lumumba, wake me up, and we would go down to the pitch in the morning, and we would train together. Of course, he was much better. He was a much better footballer. Yeah. But we used to do these workouts together and everything. Then we would face each other. And those inter-halls, I think one of them actually, UH stole it. I mean, he was so good.
No. No, Andrew.
Are you correct? You just stole it. Didn't you steal it from us?
Mark, you remember you faked in the box and the game never ended. Lumumba against UH. Yes, it was true.
It was true, yeah. So we used to, so they actually won the championship. They were not as good as us as a team, but they had the superstar.
Okay.
And he led them to that.
Yeah.
So we played together.
Okay. We actually met also in the volleyball.
In the volleyball, yeah, exactly. We played, that's why I was telling you I have a few more disciplines, competitive ones, so that you add on to that list.
Shall I talk about those shortly?
Then we played against each other, even in what we used to call regular, because it was in Miracle and I was in Posta. Then we went to the Super League. He went to Villa, I went to Diary. But I passed through Villa first as an apprentice before I went to Diary and played there. Then the comparisons stopped there.
Yeah, that's where they stop.
Yeah, because we played together against and with each other for a long time. And then the quality separated us. The guy ended up on the national team. I escaped to basketball.
Edgar, I really want us to have this conversation in two parts. First of all, your playing career as a Ugandan footballer, then the administration. And I think the administration should come last. Let's start off with you, the footballer. I mean, I'm looking at your CV. I'm looking at Namirembe. I'm looking at Center, Matia Lumumba. I'm looking at Puma. I'm looking at Miracle. This is before Villa. At that time, you're going through clubs. Do you have the dreams to pan out to be a huge footballer, or are you giving it your best?
Yeah, actually I have to mention, because I grew up in Old Kampala, so I actually traded all the learning of football within Kampala here. And my dream was always to play for the national team. I remember one time I had my coach at Namirembe FC, where he laughed actually, and he said, you, first of all, you are very tiny, very short, and very thin and weak. So don't even think about playing for the national team.
Oh,
but
wow.
I have to say the dream kept on, alive. And all through those clubs that you've mentioned, which are the local clubs that any young boy within Kampala could play in. The dream was always on, and when I became a team player in the national team, you know, it was a dream really achieved. Yeah.
Did you remind him?
Do you still meet him?
Unfortunately, that time he had passed on,
and
I couldn't.
sad.
Yeah. And I also had this character that came in, that wherever somebody told me you can't do something is when I actually got motivated to try and do it all the time. Yeah.
But let's, just before I let these two guys in, let's start about what many football fans, especially the young ones, would probably call the big break. And by young ones, I mean they weren't following the drama around Miracle Days and everything. AC Villa, you cross over to AC Villa, 1996. Your life must have changed then, Edgar. What happened?
No, actually, what happened in 1995, we had a Riab Kamya who came to Namirembe FC. He got us 6 of us. He told us to go to AC Villa. The first time I went there, I stopped at the terrace up. Why? Because when I looked down, I said, no, I can't make it. So I ran away, went back to Namirembe. Then in 96, no, that was before, not before Miracle. So in 96, when we came back, I actually had the opportunity to play for Express, for KCC, because everyone was telling me, yeah, you can play your game, your style of game in one of them, but not in Villa. So like I said, because they told me I can't play in Villa, I said, no, let me go in Villa, because I want to try and see if I can't play there.
But how huge was Villa? Because
I mean, it was tough then, yeah, you know, it was tough to get even to play. I've been lucky, I've been fortunate that actually wherever I've gone, I've either been one of the assistant captains or the captain in the team. Yeah.
So for you, leadership has always come naturally.
I think I've been lucky to be selected to be either one of the assistants or the captain.
I want to bring in Mark shortly, and that's because you played with him. Asha is Asha is a Merenio. They're just the other day.
Let us be, you know,
a little bit respectful. Okay. Mark, do you understand when Eddie says he walked the terrace and went back home to Namirembe those days? Do you understand the quality Uganda's top clubs had and how hard it was to break into those sides?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'd gone to Villa before him. Because me, I was there at 92, VAC, 92 and all. Now, the guys I met, that was crazy. Because Musisi was still around. Majid Musisi was still around before he left, because he left that year. Now, for me, it was very difficult as well. And there was so many bigger stars. Some of them had left by the time he went. But there was a new crop of superstars for Villa by the time he went there. But it was tough, because I remember being very, very intimidated. Yet thankfully, I'd been taken by Villa players, because I lived with them in Ajanankumi. They were my neighbors, a good number of them. And when I got there, a person like William Keba, I said, this guy is from SMARC. He said, yeah, that's me. I mean, from his school and everything. And so when Ayeko was asking me about my age, and I said I was 18, the people were contesting it, and they said, if he's from SMARC and he's in S6, he's 18. I remember him saying that, and then they were calling me Barnes, because I was a lefty with funny boots and all. But that was then. Then when he went, but it was so intimidating. It was scary, especially if you had not interacted with these people before.
Yeah.
So when he went, it was his issue. That was our kind of issue. Thankfully for him, by the time he went, actually, you'd already been established your name. Because, you know, Miracle played great football. They were entertainers. Everybody knew them, even through the promotion coming into the Super League. They were known as the team that played some of the most associating football. You know, Andrew Mwagisha has been talking about how Maroons and Police play. That was Miracle then. Yeah, with some of the best young players in the league coming through those schools like Old Kampala and Caltech and
let's talk, I'll come back to that. Let's talk about your time at Villa then. And the reason I'm really intrigued is because 2 years later, Paul Hasole takes over, and then you're named captain. 2 years in there, Edgar. You were a leader from the beginning, but what was the group like, and who are your inspirations then?
Actually, the time I went to Villa, I really had a hard time, because that time we went in, we were not actually winning trophies. I remember even one time the fans had to come in and take over on the field, because the then late Timothy Ayeko, who was our coach, had promised them we will be winning, you know, like 2 games in a row. So it was tough then. I'd just been playing in Miracle, which had not so many fans during the game. I just, transferred into Villa, and now the fans are actually coming in and chasing coaches away, and even the captain. Actually, before I was named the official captain, before the second year, the captain told me the fans don't like me, and I don't feel like I can lead the team. So he asked me to be the field captain, and that's when I actually
because what happened is he went into a Villa in transition. The guys I'm talking about who had won all those trophies had all left. By the time Villa won the league title of 1994, after Msi had gone to France and all, they were on old tired legs, just using their experience. Paul Hasule, Geoffrey Higenyi, Paul Nkata, those guys, they won the championship, but Villa was a waning force, and Express was taking over. So he went into Villa at the time of Express dominance, because Express had won the league in 93, they won the double in 95, and won the league again in 96, and then the cup in 97.
He won the double the first season he was made captain.
Yeah, that was at
96.
97.
Was it 96?
Yeah. He's made captain in 98.
98, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because 96 was Villa, was Express winning the league. Yeah, 97 was KCC, that Mike Mutebi and Tom Lwanga KCC.
Then 98.
Then 98 they started that run again, the Villa run.
What was it like? What was special around you being captain then now?
First of all, the responsibility was high. Remember, you've just joined in. Then your captain is saying, "Look, I don't want to be the captain on the pitch. Can you please be the field captain?" But like I said, maybe because initially even at Miracle Center, I'd been the captain, so I think it came in a little bit like something I'm used to.
Yeah.
But now the pressure of the fans, it's different when you play for teams that don't have fans on the pitch and playing as a captain of a team with fans. I remember one time the fans actually had to call me to go and face them to explain why, the coach wasn't selecting certain players on the pitch.
Yeah.
And you are going to explain to fans who even have sticks around, and any bad answer, they will also hit you.
They'll hit you.
So, but somehow I think I've been lucky. The fans accepted me and really listened to me. And also the guys we used to play with, the teammates, were also supportive. They could listen, and I think the coach was also very supportive.
Asha, just one second, do you understand where he's coming from? Because there were recent reports from Congo, I think as early as 2 or 3 years ago, where I think it was TP Mazembe or it was AS Vita, the coach had to go and explain this to the fans, very rowdy fans. That's the energy we had there.
Actually, which reminds me, I had a conversation with Flora Ibenge, the former coach of Congo, who is now, DR Congo, who is now coach of AS Vita. And he said that maybe once in 2 weeks, he has to sit down, have a meeting with fans, and explain to them why they're using the tactics they use.
Every 2 weeks?
Yes, because he has to. Every 2 weeks, sometimes every 1 month, if his schedule allows. But he has to do it. Because you have a club like AS Vita in Kinshasa, where 60,000 fans are watching training. A training session or an unveiling of a player. Yeah. So this is not a small club. These are people who are very passionate, and you have to actually go and explain to them why you're using the tactics you're using, because they'll come at you.
Yeah, although I have to also put the view, the captain, the players see you as a person of the officials. And the officials see you on the side of the players. So you find yourself as a captain, you are always in the middle. The players sometimes think you are representing the interests of the officials, and then the officials think you are actually a player. Yeah. So sometimes the captain is left to be alone, and both sides seem to think that that maybe you are not serving their interests. Yeah. But I also have to put a disclaimer. The fans always see the game in a different way. The fans always see the game in a different way. And a player could miss maybe a ball, could miss scoring a goal, but the fans may never actually understand this.
No. The fans, they have the highest level of understanding of football. You, the players, and the coach don't understand football. As we see here on the press box with Kabura, he has knows more football than the whole of Manchester.
By the way,
No,
I think
no,
let's clear this
let
for once
me
and
finish.
for all. Edgar Watson, please talk about my playing career. Let Edgar Watson talk about my playing career.
I think he has
Then
been
you have
bribed.
one.
Whatever
No,
he
no,
said,
there
he
was
has
one.
been bribed.
Watson, what do you
No,
know
no.
about Andrew the footballer?
No, he's a good footballer.
No,
He's,
no.
Yes. Yes, I saw him very young, and I don't know how he actually diverted it.
I decided to be a journalist. I
Yeah,
didn't
journalist.
say. I didn't think.
But even then, a journalist sees the game different.
Yes.
Right.
A player sees the game different. A coach sees the game different. A ref sees the game different, and an administrator will see the game different. I'm also lucky that I've played almost all the roles, and somehow it helps me to see how a ref sees the game, how I've not been a journalist. Maybe that's the only angle.
Yeah, the only one. Okay.
That's the angle you
Maybe
should have
it's
gone
the
to.
next.
But
Yeah,
Edgar,
that's
I have a
that's-
question for you. The arrival of Mitchell at Villa, what did that entail? You know, you have a coach who has no experience on the African continent. He's white. You know, there's a whole different issue there with culture and everything. His accent, I'm sure, you know, in the beginning you didn't understand what he was saying. Just tell us through, take us through that and how.
Mitchell found us in Zanzibar. We were playing the club Sekafa competition. But we are so amazed. The first talk he gave us, he knew almost everyone and whatever history that
Typical
they had.
Mitchell, right?
And what even amazed us most was that he was explaining the names and the styles of the opponents we were playing. So he really caught us. And,
Unawares,
and we could listen to him because he had researched over all the players.
Asha takes us to 2002. That's when Mitchell comes in. But I want to take you just 2 seasons back, 1999, the historical season, really, in Ugandan football. You win the double again as AC Villa. You score 108 goals, and a certain Andrew Fimbo Mukasa scores 45 goals. I want you to take me through that generation, because some of the football fans feel that is the really golden generation in Ugandan football. How good was Fimbo at the time, and how huge was that team to score 180 goals a season?
Oh, Andrew Mukasa was a natural goal scorer. I'm lucky I grew up in the old Kampala, where actually Andrew Mukasa was young and he grew up from. So I'd seen Andrew before. My best friend was actually his uncle, Yakatonda Fred. And this young boy, I think, was a natural scorer. What I know, he used to train only finishing.
Oh, really?
And I remember a goal he scored in Rwanda. One time we were playing with the APR. The goalkeeper took a long ball. He was facing the pavilion. He just took a shot. It entered the net, and all of us were just looking to see whether it's a goal or not. It was only Andrew who was celebrating. Until when we saw the goalkeeper turning to pick the ball in the net, that's when we knew the goal was coming. Then I remember also we were playing Express. Somebody brought in a cross. I tried to stop it on the chest. But as soon as I tried to stop, the ball somehow went up a little bit in the air. I don't know where it came from. I only saw the boot.
Yeah.
To look behind, the goal was inside.
Wow.
Well, I tell you what, that 45 goals had broken a 21-year-old record from Jimmy Chirunda, which had been 32 goals before. So you can understand the quality. But Mark, you wanted to add on to that?
Yeah, you know, that was Villa, of course, had different generations of very dominant teams with very great players, and that generation was a very good one. The thing, though, of course, Edgar is not going to say on TV unless we coerce it out of him, unless I talk about it as somebody who was there, is how good he was as an individual.
He's being modest.
Yeah, because
he's always modest.
Naturally, he's like that. That is him. Edgar, for guys out there, especially the young generation you have of people watching who might not know, he's somebody who was so versatile. He played virtually every position. The only position I didn't see you play was goalkeeper. I think, but Edgar played in central defense. He played in holding midfield. He played as a 9. Am I accurate? I saw you play all these positions because some of the times I was just a few meters away on the same pitch. Yeah. So he played all these things, all these positions, and he excelled at all of them. Some of them, of course, like in striking. Edgar wasn't blessed with pace. So there are perhaps people who doubted that he could play up there without that pace. But he could, because he had, one of the things he had is a very good first touch. And he had a very, an exemplary, even in a generation of very talented players, he had an exemplary football brain, which is different from talent. The football brain is different, of course, from this talent, which have some people have it in their feet and up there, there's nothing. So he was a very intelligent person. And that helped. He had the basics, because I trained next to him for a long time. Like I told you at Makerere, we'd do it together in the morning, just 2 or 3 of us. So the basics he had mastered. His first touch was incredible, his ability to pass, and those simple things. So he knew very well. But he needs to tell us which one of those was his best position, and also why he was that versatile. Okay. He needs to explain to the generation of people watching exactly what it was, and because the young players can learn perhaps from what inspired him to be that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I have to also mention that despite all the good players that I played with, we had a very good administration at Villa. And I always think, whereas you might have very good players on the pitch, if you don't have a very good administrative structure within the club, you won't make it. So first of all, before we even talk about the players, at Villa, we had a very, very good structure.
The club was
leadership.
Well run.
Yeah, very well run. But in addition to that, of course, also the other supportive players, we used to have actually competition. Competition even during the training. Sometimes you find players during training, it's like, okay, we joke a bit, and then when the match comes in, we are very serious. But at Villa, you had to really be very, very competitive even during the training. About my playing in different positions, I have to say, I don't know how it started, but at Villa, the time when I played in the defense was because we lacked a libero. And that time, I remember it was Coach Eddie Wutindo, who had been with me in Miracle Center. So he opted to give me the role of a libero. And I had 2 very good man markers. So I would always be free to intercept passes.
The times of Agri and the
I had the Bironse and the Abu.
Okay.
So it gave me time to actually even move and join within the attacking. And then, of course, naturally, I played the defensive midfield. And then, of course, before in Miracle Center, I was playing the attacking midfield.
I remember that,
and also in Miracle again, I played also the striking.
The striking, yeah.
So I think that gave me also that.
But who are your idols then? Because I'm wondering who you, when you had probably way before Miracle, when you were still a young child, you had folks you looked up to and you wanted to emulate, and now here you are, probably playing with some of them in the team?
Yeah, sure. Like I said, I grew up around Kampala, so we used to actually sneak in and go to Nachivubo, watch all the games. During the times of the Godfrey Katerega, I remember I learned from him how to take a penalty and let the goalkeeper fall this side and score this side.
By just twisting. That until now?
No, by just twisting the way you stand before you take the penalty, and then just flip it on the other side.
Trust me, Andrew has not
Godfrey
understood
Katerega.
anything you say.
The man he's talking about, Andrew, the man he's talking about in Ugandan football was called Superstar. He was one of the first superstars. You know, Uganda's equivalent of, say, George Best. I mean, George Best, when football stardom was becoming that in England, that's what Katerega was here. And he was, for example, I'll tell you, he's the first person I saw do a step over. Before I saw it on TV, step over, I saw them from Godfrey Katerega. Okay. Some of the guys of that generation were so talented. They did things, amazing things, without the benefit of, say, watching them a lot on TV. There's just 1 or 2 games here and then a World Cup and all. Those are the guys he grew up watching and idolizing. It sounds amazing. But he hasn't told us which was his best position of all of those. Which one do you think you excelled most at or enjoyed most playing?
I used to see Redondo playing, and I used to admire how he plays. So it gave me that role of playing within the middle of the field. So, but I enjoyed most playing libero role because I wasn't doing the hard work. I had 2 guys doing the hard work, and I would always participate in
perhaps then you would say that.
You know Redondo?
Oh, come on.
Mark,
because you're young, I don't know.
Mark,
you had started at that time. Had you come to Kampala?
I was in Kampala.
But also
by the way, Mark, I'll tell you something.
Yes.
When I was in Chibuli, I think around 2002, 2001, we used to were given permission to leave school and go to Nachivo to watch, the big games like KCCA, Villa Express. It was an eye-opening. I think that was my first experience with the Uganda Premier League.
But Eddie, I mean, an interesting one. A lot has changed since then. You're talking about going to meet the fans. You're talking about fans jumping onto the field. Some are still doing, but we consider them crimes in football today because some are throwing stones here and there, which I think has generally stopped. But has that energy moved away from the game? Do you feel now that you look back to it, has that energy and quality moved away from the game?
For me, the quality on the pitch is even higher. I mean, in terms of the technique, I think the players of this generation have a better technique. In terms of understanding the tactics, I think the players today actually have the understanding of the tactics much better. But probably what they don't have that we had during that time is that fight. That fight to die a little for your club and put everything on the pitch. Of course, with the history of the Ugandan game, we reached a time where, the game was being taken as being predetermined. The Arrow Boys era coped with the new international competition being accessed by the people and a few things which took away the fans. But I believe with the trends now coming in, I believe we are back on the right track to have that energy coming in.
But Edgar, let's talk about size. When you talk about players like, Paul Hasule, Philip Omondi, yourself, look at yourself, you're about what, 6'5"? Are you, what are you, 6'3"? Yeah, maybe you're 6'3", When you look at our players, seriously, our players are short, 5'8", 5'9". To get a player who is 6 feet is completely unheard of, especially here in Uganda and in sub-Saharan Africa. But let's stick to the Uganda Cranes. We have very short players in this era.
Well, for me personally, I think size, yes, it matters in some positions. But I mean, we had players who were short, not so tall, but actually entertaining and doing all the hard work, even before. I mean, I could mention names, but you remember those days, Mark? We used to have very, not very
We
tall
had some
players.
small guys who were good.
But
but
very good and very fast on the
you see, Edgar, my argument is
was not a
when you
big
have
man.
players like David Obua as your main striker, vis-a-vis, for example, if you have Emmanuel Okwi, I'm just giving you an example, or Farouk Mia. Their height, sometimes it's a disadvantage, especially when you're playing against the West Africans.
Yeah, like I said, some positions, maybe you are a striker and you need to be the lone striker. Of course, you can't be a short player. You need a player, a striker whom every defender will be looking at. And then maybe the short players now will use the spaces around.
Fahad Bayo, Igalo.
Big guy, but I think because technique is very, very important. And size, I think, is secondary to technique, that ability. And also what he was talking about, the heart, the determination, that determination, it makes up for the lack of size in certain players. And while players have grown smaller generally across the world, in some cases, they are fitter because the conditioning is better now. Everything from nutrition to exercise is different from from what we used to have. There was no gym, for God's sake, when we were growing up and things like that. So the guys can, regardless of their size, can be strong, even stronger than they were before. But the training techniques are so modernized that people can polish up on not only their physical strength but on technique and everything more now than back then. So
you were part of the team that beat Rwanda 5-0 in the '98 AFCON qualifiers. Well, unfortunately, we are also part of the team that lost here at Nambole. So shall be talking about the fact that we are facing Rwanda in the World Cup qualifiers. But then I want to go back to 1995. You make your debut for the Cranes against Kenya. You said it was a friendly. Just take me through that invite to the national team and what it meant to a young Watson who hadn't moved to Villa yet?
No, not yet. Actually, what happened, the Cranes players had gone on strike. That time, they actually called me. I was somewhere on the street. Then somebody came looking for me.
Because there were no phones.
The phones were not as common as now. So they told me, look, you're being called by FUFA officials. You're supposed to be in camp. And I said, look, How?
Someone found you on the street.
Yeah, on the street.
Please explain that in
Yeah,
detail.
because, you know, the Cranes players had gone on strike that time. I think they went to Algeria and they were not paid, so they had to strike. And then they had organized a friendly match, and the away team Kenya team had already come in. So a day before, they called me, so they gathered most of us to come in. And I remember the time when we were coming in on the field, the fans actually abused us. Our fans, the Ugandan fans, were abusing us. So I remember Alan Tingu, Ibrahim Mogisha, the striker from KCC.
From KCC.
So that was our generation
Godfrey,
now.
yes.
And you know what happened is within 15 minutes, the whole fans around were saying, no, don't bring back those other guys who were striking. Because we played as if we had actually trained together for some time. Yeah.
Wow.
And we scored 4. We scored 4 goals in that match. So that's when now they said, okay, you 4 players don't go back home. Now you are in the
You're now
Cranes.
Cranes players.
Yeah.
But that changed your life, didn't it? Playing for the Cranes then?
Yeah, of course. Playing for the national team, any player will tell you the first match. My experience, I played in Nachivubo the first match, official match. I could see like the roof of Nachivubo falling on me. Actually, I made about 5 blind passes during that match. It's always tough playing the first match.
Yeah.
So yes, you're excited, nervous.
And it was filled to the rafters.
Filled, and I'd started actually the game. So sometimes that's why coaches have to, you know, give these players a chance to get used to the environment, and then later on you come in.
Well, not sure how many facts you knew about Edgar Watson, to be honest, but I want to cross over Joel Kamadi and Andrew Mwangusha shortly. When they come back to us, though, we shall talk about the big developments at the Federation. He is the CEO of FUFA. We shall talk about the development of the game here in Uganda. We had the Secretary General recently visiting us here. We shall talk about that big visit and what it means for Ugandan football. We have World Cup qualifiers being brought closer, so FUFA probably has a bigger job to do than they thought, a little bit more urgent. We shall discuss that as well, plus take some of your reactions online. Plus, one big rumor that is quite uncomfortable for his career that is going around. He played at Villa, won 7 titles, but a few fans are saying maybe he supports a team in red. We shall discuss that when we get back. Joel, what's happening?
Andrew, there's a contentious debate on Twitter because somebody has actually come up and said, you said you came to Kampala in 1999, but you're saying that, you know, Edgar Watson knows your story about soccer when you were a child. So which is which? That is an answer you will need to give us later. Let me just read some more reaction from guys on Twitter. Ivan Serunkuma says, Mark Sally should be a storyteller, quite meticulous. He easily could sell you sand in Abu Dhabi. Mulongwa AWB says, finally back to watching PRESSBOX. Feels good to see the team again after a long while. Paul Unzimai says, we miss the frogs in the background regardless. We are watching the show live. It's always a pleasure catching you every Monday. We have a viewer from Kenya, Bob Owino, watching the show in Kenya. Thank you very much, Bob. And this question goes to Edgar Watson. Maybe you can be thinking about what we discussed something with Andrew here. He says, question to CEO, how has Edgar Youth Academy influenced football skilling in Uganda, and who are the famous players it has produced? So while you think about that, let me switch to Andrew very quickly. Mwangusha, I don't know if you're like me, because I did watch Edgar play a few times in the past. So it makes me, you know, I'm not so young, but you watched him as well. I know you did. He was a dynamite in any position that he played in. Is it right to say he would have easily made it to a team in Europe?
My first time to watch Edgar, I was at school, and the former Toro FC, forget the Toro United now, Avila came to play in Fort Porto against Toro. And, you know, of course, I'd been listening to comment on Radio Uganda, and all these names were, you know, running in the head. And then I saw Edgar. This, of course, his lighter complexion would tell from the rest of the players on the pitch. And he would sit just in front of the back four and begin attacks from there, spreading balls either side of the pitch so comfortably. At that point, of course, we would follow, you know, European football. You know, you catch late games or you read the papers. And I saw Edgar, I'm like, wait a minute. This guy, his kind of game is not, you know, he shouldn't be here. I thought at the time, Edgar should have been somewhere playing in Europe. And I think he needs to tell us when we get back to that, to their set, whether he thinks he should have played in Europe, or if he were playing today, would he be playing in Uganda? Because I thought at the time he was the most comfortable on the ball, and the way he, spread the passes and, picked out his fellow colleagues on the pitch was effortless. It's like he had 4 eyes roving, left, right, and center. But for me, it's the ease with which he did it that really tells you the difference between him and the rest.
What position did you mostly enjoy watching him play?
I think digging it from deep, and then, having that option of seeing everyone ahead of him and then picking out his people. He was, for me, yes, he would release that ball, from 8, but he seemed to have the pitch before him coming in from deep 6 and then, prodding and looking for his friends. So for me, I thought he was more dangerous, sitting back and then turning, looking around and then picking his men.
All right.
Yeah.
Somebody on Twitter has ask Edgar for me to compare these 3 players,
Yeah.
Fred Tamale, Jackson Mayanja, and Jamal Willie Chambade. Who was the best player he ever played with or against?
Oh, okay, there you go. I think we should start off with that one. Those were 3 players that are legendary, whichever way you look at it in Ugandan sport. How do you compare the 3?
Wow, that's a very, very tough question. First of all, I believe each of the players was very instrumental under different circumstances. If you talk about Fred Tamale, I was playing defense one time in Miracle. Actually, there was a picture in the media where we were sitting as if we were in a meeting on the pitch. He faked us from about 5 players, and he scored a goal when we were all down. Jackson Mayanja, he was this kind of very lethal player who would get a ball at places you don't expect him. I also happened to defend him one time when I was in Villa, and he was such a very shrewd player who will do anything, anytime. Willie Chambade, amazing. He needed only one other player on the pitch to actually play any other opponent.
Yeah.
This was a player who could do anything with the ball, and I mean, it's a very tough question that I wouldn't even rank. I wouldn't even be able to answer.
I want us to go for a break. I want us to go for a break very shortly, but before we go for a break, I think we have a chance to throw this one in, because I want us to talk about the academy and everything FUFA. But some of the players we mentioned your name in the same breath with went to Europe, like Mwangusha was saying. We had Majid Msisi, of course, at some point. We had the likes of Jackson Mayanja. Why didn't you go to Europe? Did the chance ever come up?
One, I wasn't a good player to play professionalism.
Oh, wow.
Professional football. 2, during that time, if you remember, most of the players who went out were actually these rebel players. Yes. At that time, the attitude was, let's have the players within the local league. And normally, I remember one official saying, unless my head is off, some of these players will never play outside this team. Oh. So the attitude then was that players needed to stay within the club. Today's attitude of officials is who is around to be sold outside.
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. We've got to go for a quick break. When we come back from the break, though, I give the Mark and, of course, Asha a few chances to ask Edgar Watson more questions. Then we talk about the current projects in Ugandan football. You're watching the Press Box, my friend, and we're live from the Press Box. The hashtag tonight is NTV PRESSBOX. For any reactions you honestly want to send in, we are hosting the legend, Edgar Watson, also the CEO of FUFA, a man who makes sure every single operation in Ugandan football is going on well. Now, just before we talk about the latest developments from Mengo, let's talk about one important issue, Eddie, because one of the bigger discussions in football all over the world is that slump national teams go through, players go through, clubs go through. And sometimes it's brought up by lack of continuity. The younger generation being tutored enough to go and replace the older folks. Is that your dream behind the Edgar's youth program, and how far has it gone?
Actually, what put us to start the Edgar's youth program was that time we were playing on the pitch. Most of the parents thought that football was bad and was only played by people who could not go to school. So we thought we, the people who were playing the game, were the right people to come out and try to mentor the young ones. So that's the first inspiration that so many boys, young boys and girls love to play football, but nobody will come in that time that had played football to come in and tell them exactly what was happening and how football wasn't bad. But footballers are like any other human beings, some who are bad and some who are good. So that's the inspiration that brought us. Secondly, I know of young people who really want to play football, but they don't know where to go. The parents are not sure about the people who are doing this industry, who are teaching the kids. So we thought if we come up and put some entity around, at least it will help advise, even give the children a chance to play, even if they'll be footballers or not. For me, that was the inspiration.
But give us some details, though. How is it working now? Where are they training from?
Now I have to say we've grown up.
Yeah.
I have to mention with authority, we've secured even land in Mukono district where we want to put actually our own fields, a camp where children can come in and spend a whole day or even weekend. We have now a permanent office at Mengo, not Mengo near FUFA, but Mengo near Sanyo Baby's home, permanent. So I'm happy to say we've grown and we are now more stronger than before. I've had a question, people asking where are the players that we've trained. Just go and look at the league table today. The player who is a top scorer today, Stephen Mukwara, is a product of Edgar's. He came very young at probably 14. And now I'm proud to say that he's a product of Edgar's. Even now, when he's playing in Maroons on loan, he's still Edgar's.
Yeah.
I have other players who have grown, because for us what we did was to go back to the young ones. So they are now just coming up. We are topping up the league in Kampala region, 3rd division, and we are topping up, and we have all the hope that maybe next year Edgar's will be in the 2nd division.
Oh, okay.
So we have also other players like Ibrahim Mugurusi, who is in Busoga United. So he has also been called in the under 20. So even under 17. So we have players generally who are coming, but we need 1 or 2 years. We'll be able to give you more.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
And then you have the Kaburas also.
Yeah, of course, Kabura.
Jaga,
By the way,
and,
I also want to mention, playing football does not mean you'll be a professional player alone.
as we have seen.
There's a lot of direction within the game of football. You can be a salesman in football. You can be an administrator, like what I'm doing. You can be a coach. You can be a media journalist. You can be anything you want within the game.
Yeah.
But now, if a young person loves football and he will not play professional football, shouldn't he play football at that age?
Yeah,
He should,
right.
So
Yeah.
that's
because
the reason.
there are so many other
absolutely,
aspects.
So
that
for
they
us
learn
at
from the game.
Edgar's, we do not make footballers. We only use football to make better people in the world.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
Fantastic.
Wow, that's
Fantastic.
amazing. Yeah, but
Fantastic.
still, but it's a great one. I'm actually going to use that line somewhere. I'm stealing it.
Yeah.
But also, I'm sure there's at least you have an eye for say links in Europe and things like. Do you have contacts in Europe where you think, because if most of the guys will turn out like Kabura and go through your academy and become journalists, there will be a Mukwana, like you say. So a kid will come and score top score in the league and then want
come
to
here.
go
I'm
to
actually
Europe.
here.
Yeah. So do you have contacts with European clubs? Do you have contacts with agents? Do you have that kind of setup where there might be an opportunity for somebody to come from Edgar's and be Uganda's first Premier League player?
Yes, of course, we have
English Premier League
contacts. Of course, in the UK, we have some contacts with the Bolton. We have contacts with a few people who connect us in the tournaments there. But also, the idea that we want to trade now with the ownership of our own ground is, why should we take the kids out there, reach there, have a culture shock, yet we could organize and bring the coaches from Europe, come here where the players are, and be able to teach us and orient us to be able to go. So yes, we have the contacts, but we believe we need to develop the industry in Uganda to be a professional industry where people can actually become professional and make money within the country.
Yeah, absolutely.
Edgar, let's talk about your role at FUFA. You were CEO when Lawrence Mulindwa was president. So the fact that you maintained your position there, even under a new president, normally it should be political, let's get someone who's new, but you stayed on as CEO because also that's a very important role. Literally, you're at the operations of the federation. What has it been like in the last recent few years that you've been in charge, and how important is it to have a good off the pitch organization, that then leads to the team doing well on the pitch?
Yeah, first of all, I did political science at the university, and I know the principle that everywhere where there are two people, politics will be there. Because politics is influence, politics is decision. Who takes the upper decision when decision has to be made? So wherever there are two people, politics will always be there.
Including on PRESSBOX?
Yeah, including, yes, we have somebody to influence the program, and that's politics. So having said that, I served as a CEO during Mr. Lawrence Mulindra's time. He actually called me and he said, I want to work with you, just like he called Mr. Ingenia Moses Magogo to come in and work. But I believe the two leaders have actually operated within different times. The time Mr. Lawrence Mulindwa came in, we actually needed a Lawrence Mulindwa, not Ingenia Moses Magogo. Yeah. But the time when Mr. Lawrence Mulindwa left, we actually needed Ingenia Magogo. Yeah. So I believe Uganda has been destined, and it's maybe by luck or because of God, that we actually, after Mr. Lawrence Mulindwa, it was Ingenia Moses Magogo who came in, because they've operated under very different, circumstances. Yeah, yeah. So sometimes I hear people who want to compare who is better, who has done best. My take is that it's like asking who is a better teacher or a better coach during different times with different players. So I believe I'm lucky that I've served as a CEO for both. I believe Mr. Lawrence Mulindwa did lead us into the times best. And after his exit, we actually have a president who has led us to actually better heights.
Talking about luck, sorry. I've been in a space where at CAF level, they believe that Uganda is the best run federation, especially when it comes to club licensing. Now, we know this is an issue that is actually going to lay a good foundation for the discussions we're going to have about FIFA President Gianni Infantino's suggestions to the African continent. How important has it been for you to stick your feet on the ground and tell the clubs, this is what you're supposed to do? We need to move away from the unprofessionalism that has, been there in yesteryears. And for you, how have you been able to customize that in the Ugandan setting and then gotten the results that you wanted?
The vision of FUFA is to be #1 football nation in Africa, both on and off the field. That's the vision we have. Our mission is to develop, promote, and protect the game of football in Uganda for all. And this is the guidance that we have. Everything we do, we want to be the best in Africa, on and off the pitch. So when you talk about club licensing, the federation under the leadership of Ingenia Magogo is directed towards being the best in Africa. So whatever we do, yes, it may fall short, it may be within the process, but our catchword is to be the best in Africa. Right now, as we speak, we are, I believe, leading in execution of safety and security during the matches. I've been told we are actually doing very well. And so many other areas that we think in a few years' time will be actually the best.
Let me just quickly drop in something. Before we ask him the next question, I want to let you guys know that Valentine's Day, Valentine's Day is coming up. It's just around the corner.
Look at Mark and the shock on his face.
Yeah, I've talked about Valentine's on this show.
I'm
telling you, life is a flower of which honey is love. You understand what I mean?
No, I don't.
The Kampala Serena Hotel is the lovers' hive this Valentine's Day. So you should bring your loved ones to the Kampala Serena Hotel to celebrate this fantastic, fantastic day. There are special accommodation offers for all that will be coming through. And of course, dinner options on the 14th of February will include 3 different restaurants. You have the Pearl Restaurant and the Champagne Bar, which is just right next to us. You have the Lakes Restaurant, which of course will have a buffet meal. And you have the Explorers Restaurant as well. So this Valentine's Day, If you want to enjoy it well with your lover, you make sure you come down to the Kampala Serena Hotel. But I'll tell you, someone who's fallen in love with Uganda is the Secretary General of FIFA, Fatma Samora. She recently was in Uganda. We talked about it on the last show, but now that you're here, tell us, how important was her visit, and what do we reap from this?
Yeah, I think it was important to really host Fatma, the Secretary General of FIFA, because you know, where she goes is always a focus in the world. So we are actually doing one of the actions that we do at the Federation, which is advocacy. So by inviting her and her accepting to come in, it was actually trading Uganda all over the world. The second point was that she had never actually come into Uganda as a Secretary General within the lenses of a Secretary General. So she came in to see actually what we are doing. So we also had the chance to get her, to show her everything that we are doing. And now I believe she has a better understanding of Uganda and better understanding of FUFA, how it's operating. Of course, when she was leaving, she happened to have an audience with the Right Honorable Speaker, Rebecca Kadaga, and she actually put in a voice to say that Uganda actually needs to work on the sports law. The law is still very old. It's a hindrance in development of sports within the country. And we were glad that she came in and also added in the voice during this time.
Yeah, it's very concerning that the new Minister of State for Sport was there.
Yes.
Honorable Hamison Abua. Yes. He's somebody who would take that up on the floor of Parliament if, when the time comes.
I've had a few discussions with the FUFA president before, and Engineer Moses Mawogo, and one of the things he's told me is that as football people, we need to focus on the football, on the business, and the governance. And I'm now asking the new FUFA headquarters or building, how do they fit into these three to make sure the game moves forward?
Yeah, of course, like I said, to have better results on the pitch, you must have a better organized structure outside the pitch. I mean, you are not going to have, for example, competition organized where you need about 5 people when they are all squeezed within a small office. We run so many competitions at the Federation, about 8 of them, and you need people to really, you know, do the organization. But I also have to mention that the Federation is not only focusing on those 3 areas. We actually have 8 focus areas, including the national team, governance, competitions, the member associations, the regions, and the clubs. So we have 8 focus areas that we are focusing on. And also, to allay your fears, Andrew, we have a program that is actually going in to develop the pitches. As we speak now, we have a partnership as FUFA with the UEFA. We expect to have an expert who will come in the country to create a pool of experts. As we mentioned now, as we talk, we don't have experts who are actually there to develop and make the pitches, you know, good at that level. So within this month, we expect to have a course. Of course, we'll start with the people who have been trying to do this kind of work, but also getting the equipment. There's a type of equipment we don't have within the country. And thanks to our partnership with UEFA, we'll be able to do actually this. There's also another program where we are reaching out to the whole country. So far, we are trying to work in Tungamo, Soroti, Bugembe Stadium. We've worked with the Buganda Kingdom. We are given land in Lugazi. We've worked with the Namirembe Cathedral. We are given land at Kadiba. We are working in Hoima. We are trying to get pitches that will be actually developed so that we have these grounds.
Okay. There's, however, most of those focus areas you're talking about quite developmental, and you seem to have your finger on the pulse as far as they're concerned. But there's the one concerning area which could derail what we're all trying to do here. And that is the issue of match fixing with betting. I know. Paint a picture for us what the Federation thinks about this. How are you going to tackle this? What have you actually identified it as a vice? And do you have any leads into how we are going to to cut off this nine-headed monster?
Yeah. Like I said, the mission of the federation is to develop, promote, and protect the game. And what you're talking about now is about protecting the game. The problem we have as a federation, and I'll be straight on, is that the federation does not have the capacity to investigate to the dot. Because the people who are involved in this kind of arrangement are actually the witnesses. So, and the catchword is the 3 R's. You are supposed to recognize, report, resist, and report. Now, most people may recognize, may resist, but they may not be willing to come in and report such cases. But this is why we are actually asking for the amendment of the law. Because we think if the law is amended so that whoever is caught up, maybe police coming in to investigate, whoever is found guilty of manipulating matches is actually prosecuted by the courts of law as a crime, as a criminal act. So
guys, we need to wrap this. Maybe 2 final questions for Edgar.
Over the weekend, the FIFA president Gianni Infantino was in Morocco speaking at a seminar talking about infrastructure development in Africa, and he's proposing a $1 billion project where every country on the continent has a stadium, and FIFA actually wants to go and look for this money and fund this project. Do you think this is something that is perhaps possible? You know, like, and from your perspective and FIFA projects that they've been running over the years, what do you make of this as Ugandan FA, you know, as FUFA?
Of course, if it involves getting another stadium to host matches, I think it's something that Uganda welcomes with both hands. We need actually fields. We need stadium to play football by FIFA through the FIFA funds that are being given.
Another thing that is quite of interest is that Infantino is proposing to CAF that the Africa Cup of Nations should happen every 4 years instead of every 2 years. What do you think about that and why?
I'm yet to really understand. It's a proposal that has been put forward. At the onset, of course, there are reasons why it's being proposed. But at the onset, I think we still need that interval of 2 years. Because in Africa, normally we use the AFCON as a step actually towards the World Cup. And if you now put it at 4 years, I mean, maybe it would mean now we play Sekafa, only the Zono.
Yes.
But I believe there are reasons. Maybe there is another competition that will be coming in to fill the gap. And
well, his argument is that, you know, the AFCON does not make money, because that's the truth also. Just last year in Egypt, CAF made losses after the AFCON because also the teams were increased to 24 teams, and then, you know, the whole issue with Lagarde. But from an African football fan perspective, I don't believe that it's a good idea, because we breathe football, and football is bigger than just the money that is made from the tournament or just that, you know, these teams are playing. It's a lot more. Football is bigger on the African continent, you know.
Yeah, but I know for sure that the FIFA president, Gianni Infantino, has always preached football more than even anything else. And I believe AFCON is one method under which football is being played. But I also believe maybe there is something else that will be put in place. I've had a few ideas that, of course, it's FIFA to mention, that are also in the back room. And I believe if it comes up, it will be still maintaining football to be up there.
Okay, Eddie, I think I'm calling you Eddie now. Just my final question really to you before I cross over to Joel, then we can come back and help us make some predictions here. Rwanda, Kenya, Mali. We have been, and I want you to probably explain this as you conclude what I consider FUFA's achievements since Magogo came through, really. The Africa Cup of Nations, twice? We are one of the more feared nations on the African continent now. Our league is very vibrant here. But the 3 nations we have to take on to have a chance, probably a chance for us to step up now and qualify for the World Cup. Because I will go mad, my friend. I will go mad if we qualify for the World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, since you didn't go mad when we qualified for AFCON.
I did!
I believe
I have
we'll
him
still
on tape,
have,
don't worry.
Okay, a little bit mad. We also love that.
Yeah.
But I believe first of all, the vision to be #1 in Africa. Of course, you have to qualify for the World Cup. It's a bit tricky. And normally, like we discussed with the national team coach, Jonathan McKinstry, we realize the opportunity to qualify is there. Maybe even probably more than before. But it's also tricky when you're playing, you know, the neighborhood countries, the derbies that are always, you know, within that.
Yes.
And remember, it's World Cup. And today, if you talk about the level of African football, it's almost, I mean, any team can come and make results anytime. So I believe it's going to be interesting. I know as Uganda, we need to work hard. It's not something that is very, very open, but we still have a chance to really use the opportunity and qualify. I know for sure Mali has always been very strong, especially at the youth level. They've won trophies and come in, but Uganda is also out there, and I believe they're also thinking about Uganda seriously.
It will be a fantastic one. Let me quickly cross over to Joel Kamadi now. He's got some reactions for you online, and then he will take us through some of those predictions as well before we can have the final part of the show. Joel, what's happening?
All right, I have 3 very quick ones because I understand we're fast running out of time, so I'll just jump right into it. Frank Sabiti says, thanks guys for the show. Can you please ask him about his most telepathic partnership with Hakim Magumba, aka Boda Boda? I loved them. Isaac Hagen says, ask the CEO which player he watches now in Europe that reminds him of himself. And one last one, this is a very interesting one actually. To understand Edgar Watson's game, you need to have watched Xabi Alonso at Liverpool, Real Madrid and Bayern Munich. There's a lot of similarities between the two footballers, and that should tell you the caliber of the player that he was. So think about that. You'll be giving us those answers much later on. But let me quickly jump into the transfer deadline that closed, or the January transfer deadline rather, that closed. But we do understand Premier League clubs are permitted to make changes to their squad list throughout the January window. The deadline to resubmit those is on February the 5th. So if you see any changes, don't be too quick to ask the questions. I'll quickly go through some of them, the big ones. Transfer News Live reported that Barcelona signed, of course, 21-year-old Brazil midfielder Matheus Fernandes from Palmeiras for £10 million. Emre Can joined Dortmund on loan from Juventus with an obligation to buy this summer for around £26 million. Manchester United brought in Nathan Bishop for undisclosed fee from Southend, and Bruno Fernandes, of course, from Sporting Lisbon. Liverpool just brought in Takumi Minamino from Red Bull Salzburg. Aston Villa brought in Louis Barry and Mbwana Samata from Genk and Barcelona, respectively. We have Arsenal, who brought in Cedric Suarez from Southampton on loan, and Pablo Mari from Flamengo as well on loan. Probably the most questionable one was this one. Manchester United signed former Watford winger striker Odion Igalo on a 6-month loan deal, no option to buy. Of course, that was the source from Manchester United.
Well, there you go. More details on that, actually, Joel. The report suggests that the option to buy will be discussed before June because the deadline was fast coming close, and United didn't think they would conclude that contract if they were to add all those details of option to buy because time was running out. But that's fantastic for most of the clubs in Europe getting your transfers coming through. Eddie, as we conclude, Boda Boda, Hakim Magumba. How good a player was he?
Oh, very, very good. Yeah, like you said, he was actually my opponent during training. That's how funny it was. But during the matches, we were always playing together. I think we had reached a time where we knew what each one of us will do at that particular time. So I know he was very fantastic. But also, we also had the Dan Mobirus, the Mugabe. We had very, very good, wonderful team during that time.
Yeah, the Philip Sozis.
The question about the player that reminds him
of him
in Europe. I want to ask you first before I go to him.
Okay. No, you know, earlier,
because you know him.
Earlier when he talked about Redondo as the guy who he really wanted to play, like who inspired him. That is the Argentine at Real Madrid, the legendary Argentine. Yeah, so that was the kind of player he was for the guys who don't know. Or if you watched Ivan Helguera. I don't know how many people watched Ivan Helguera then. Okay, if I come to closer now to this generation, he will want to disagree or agree, I don't know. But say Sergio Busquets, or Michael Carrick. Yeah, that was the kind of holding midfielder. Yeah, yeah, Michael. That vision of Michael. What Andrew Mwangusha was describing that he saw, he was actually like you could easily be talking about Michael Carrick. The vision from deep, the ability to control football games from deep by picking passes and everything. I don't know if he agrees with me, but he can tell us.
Edgar is shaking his head, so let's
and when he said that he wasn't good enough to play in Europe, he was being modest.
Yeah, no, he was not even being modest, he was lying. But Eddie, the player in Europe who kind of reminds you of your old self?
No, thank you so much, but I think you are overrating really. and I'll insist. The coaches know that. Unfortunately, I didn't love seeing myself even on TV. So even now, I don't know, I didn't like seeing myself playing the game. So because of that, I can't compare myself to because I never saw myself playing.
I'll do it for you, Edgar. I'll do it for you.
So everyone has his own opinion, but I don't have an opinion.
Whenever there's CAF tournaments, you know, AFCON or CHAN, there's always games between the local organizing committee and people that are working at the time for CAF. And by the way, Edgar is a member of the technical committee for CAF.
Yeah.
And when they're playing, he's the superstar on the pitch.
Yeah.
So at least I've seen that part. Yeah, so that's
can
what
understand.
Edgar,
we've got
I don't think I was too far off. He won't
close.
admit, not even off air.
But let's wrap this up, guys. Let's wrap
is
this
it,
up. Eddie, your final comments really to the Ugandan football community, and I insist we focus on where we really have come from. I talk about the two AFCONs in there. I talk about us being a dominant side in the AFCON. I talk about Samora being here, so the future of Ugandan football with infrastructure looking good. From a CEO's perspective, where are we headed? What's the good news to the football fans out there?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank all the people who are really involved in organizing the teams, the clubs, and also running. You know, everyone who is involved in this industry. I think the message I have as a person who is doing the CEO's work at the Federation now is that sometimes we don't know exactly what we want. We need to come together, build the industry of football within the country. Yes, criticism is good, but let's not criticize in a manner that will kill the industry of football in the country. The games we watch out there in Europe were also developed. We also have a chance to develop our game. So I call upon everyone, parents, the young ones, the administrators, the journalists. Let's all criticize or do whatever work that we are doing in a manner that will develop the industry. This industry is big, it can employ people, it can do any business that the country may need to do. Anybody, accountants can be employed, people, producers of shows can be employed, presenters, so long as we put this industry to the level where it deserves. Let's love the game of football in Uganda, our own game. Let's develop the game and make sure we put it at the level it deserves.
Edgar Watson, the CEO of the Federation, thank you very much for coming to the show tonight. Just before you go, we have one final task for you. Let's quickly show you our predictions for this week. We have this interesting game where we all just throw predictions in, and shortly we shall show you who is good and who actually is not good. So let me start off with Spurs up against Southampton. I start with you, Mark. Spurs, Southampton, how do you see this one going?
Home win.
Home win.
I'm going 2-1.
2-1.
Yeah.
Edgar?
2-0.
2-0. Okay. Asha?
2-1.
2-1. Joel is going for 2-0. Mwangusha, I know which score he's going for. You're standing behind the lights, my friend. I can't see you. 2-0. 2-0 to Spurs. Everton up against Crystal Palace, Mark?
No, tough one. I'm going a draw.
Going for a draw.
Yeah, 1-1.
Okay, Edgar?
Everton 1-0.
Okay. Carlo Ancelotti fan, are you? Asha?
1-0.
1-0. And then, of course, 2-1 for Everton. That's what Joel says. And Mwangusha says it will be 1-1. Why did you guys put this game on the predictions list? Brighton, Watford?
I don't know. Relegation scrap. I don't know why he put it there, really.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why.
How do you see it going, though?
As a toughie. Let me go away win.
Away win for Watford.
Yeah.
They're doing fantastic. Edgar?
1-1.
1-1. Asha?
1-1.
Okay. And then Joel goes for 1-1, and Mwangusha is going for 2-1 to Watford as well. Leverkusen, Dortmund.
Another toughie. And let me go another away win here. I'm going 2-1 Dortmund.
Dortmund. Okay, Edgar?
Tricky. 2-2.
2-2.
Neymar chingo kopa scores zange. 2-1 to Dortmund.
2-1 to Dortmund. 2-1 to Dortmund as well for Joel, and 3-2 for Mwangusha. 3-1 for Mwangusha. There you go. Then City up against West Ham. A shaky City up against West Ham.
Yeah, I think West Ham are in trouble.
Yeah.
They needed some good fixtures coming out of the run from which they're coming. I don't think they're going to find Man City in very charitable mood.
Yeah.
And they will fight, but they're going down.
Okay.
3-1.
3-1. Edgar?
Yeah, 3-1.
3-1.
2-1.
2-1 to I. Joel says 4-0. Mwangusha says 4-1. Okay, there you go. That is it. Let's quickly look at what the table looks like then for the predictions. We had a couple of games we picked on this weekend. The quick question is who is still top of that table and who picked how many points on that table. Let me just say I predicted Chelsea Leicester would be 2-2, and I got the perfect score.
Yeah.
I also predicted it would be a draw between Arsenal and Burnley. I don't know how you guys did. That's how far I've gone now. Asha Komgisha, as always, holding firm at the bottom. Then we have Robert Madoi, who is not on the show, but will be coming very, very soon. 87 points, followed by Mwangusha, then Joel on 75. We all question Joel Kamadi's positioning because he's the one who computes the table. Then, of course, Max Ali on quite a lowly 67.
It's not that lowly.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm close. I'm not even looking at you. I'm looking at Joel. 8 behind. Yeah. I think I could catch up in one weekend.
Okay.
So, by the Kabura, you're in trouble. Yeah.
Okay. No problem. Once again, Eddie, thank you very much for coming. And please continue with the debate on Twitter. The hashtag is NTV PRESSBOX. As you send us your side of the story. It's a big week coming up in world football and world sport. We shall get you as many updates as we can. Stick with us. We shall be back on Monday at 10 p.m. exclusive to NTV and, of course, the Kampala Serena Hotel. Good night and be safe.